But first, we're going to start with and just jump right into it. Um, the announcement yesterday that was made in regard to the new gun laws or safety laws that they're trying to impose on Canadians about the weapons. They're trying to take away more weapons. Now, we'll get into the stories here, but I just want to start by saying I personally think that this is just a ploy and a distraction to take our attention away from the finance minister. They don't want us paying attention to that right now because they're keeping that under wraps as long as they possibly can. Because from what I understand, a lot of the weapons that are on this list really haven't been any concern in Canada at all. I mean, I think one of them is like automatic weapon with a grenade launcher on it. It's like I don't think anybody really has ever had access to buying those kinds of weapons up here. Anyway, um, but first thing we'll start with is our trusted page and friends here, True North. Have the public safety minister Dominic LeBlanc announces a ban on 324 firearms. Legal gun owners have an amnesty until October 2025. LeBlanc says the firearms will be included in the buyback program. He says the confiscated firearms could be donated to Ukraine. Like, what a slap in the face. What a slap in the face. Let's have a listen.
Today, the government is adding a further 324 unique makes and models of assault-style firearms to the list of prohibited firearms in Canada. This prohibition takes effect immediately. This means these firearms can no longer be legally used, sold, or imported in Canada, and can only be transferred or transported under extremely limited circumstances. The government has introduced an amnesty that is currently in force and expires on October 30th, 2025, to protect individuals who legally purchased these firearms prior to the ban. This amnesty period will protect these individuals from criminal liability as they take steps to come into compliance with the law. During the amnesty period, there is an exception to allow Indigenous peoples exercising a right under Section 35 of the Constitution, as well as those who use firearms for sustenance hunting, to continue to use their now prohibited firearms to hunt, if previously non-restricted, until a suitable replacement can be found. As with the previous list of firearms, these models will, of course, be part of the assault-style firearms compensation program. And to that end, I'm pleased to point out that the pilot program of Phase 1 of the gun buyback program is now underway. The program will be open for all businesses in the coming days. As part of that process, the Government of Canada has committed to the Ukrainian government to identify whether some of these guns could be donated to support the fight for democracy in Ukraine. My colleague Bill Blair will speak on this in a few moments. In addition to banning these guns, we're also taking action on the regulatory front. Next Friday, December 13th, we will table regulations to ensure that no firearm can come into Canada or be sold in Canada without first being approved by the RCMP. And no later than the end of January, we will table additional measures in Parliament to address the rates of gun violence in situations of gender-based and intimate partner violence. We will also introduce further regulations on red and yellow flag laws early this spring, and regulations on large capacity magazines no later than March.
Uh, that's some pretty dystopian, new laws. They're trying to weaken the people. right? The United States has their militia, which strengthens them. A lot of people in Canada don't quite understand the power of the militia down in the United States. The militia in the United States is loaded with ex-military and warehouses stocked full of ammunition in case, the government becomes tyrants. And that's what the Constitution was written about. It was written the right to bear arms to protect yourselves from the rise of a tyrannical government. And that's what the founding fathers were doing. They knew that back in Europe, where they came from, the people were not allowed to bear arms. That's the fact, right? Remember the old line from the movie? I talk about this in my gun control video. I'll post it I'll try to link it in the bottom. But there's a line from the movie Braveheart where he says, William Wallace's best friend says, "They don't let us train with weapons, so we train with stones." And that's because in Europe, they've never let people train with weapons. France and Napoleon Bonaparte, told people in the new movie, he says, I can't let you have that sword. When this boy asks for his father's sword, he says, "I can't let you have that. It's a weapon." And that's because they just don't let the people have any kind of equal strength, because it's about ruling over the people. It's not about governing the people. And Canada wants to rule over its people. And that's very evident. Again, I don't really personally believe that this is really all that concerning, because they know that they're on their way out. They know that there's no saving them. I mean, if you read the comments, you go to Jagmeet's page. Let's go take a look at. Let's go to pretty much any post. It says, "Today in the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Liberals and the Conservatives teamed up to block a motion to recognize the Sikh genocide. They've known about this for months. They could have spent the time to listen to the concerns of the community. Instead, they turned their backs." I don't particularly give a shit what this rat says, but let's have a look at the comments here. I commented turncoat, because he's a turncoat. He's turned on his people. He cares more about money and his well-being than being a servant of the people, which is what he was elected to be. But if you read these comments, not important to me, 95% of Canadians, I'm 100% more concerned about disappearing Canadian values. Go F yourself, Sikh boy. I'm going to try and limit my swearing because I'm a little worried that my videos are going to be getting restricted by YouTube here. But every comment, "Oh, Jag, stop. You are in Canada, son. You have a role to play in Canada. It has zero to do with Sikh this, Sikh that. If Sikh happenings is your passion and your concern, may I suggest you leave Canadian politics and concentrate on Sikh issues." Salty Canuck, "You turned your back on us, traitor." GFY, go F yourself. Wyatt Claypool, "How many times did it take to answer the question of who blew up the Air India flight? You, Mr. Singh, are the reason that Canada is in shambles, and that affects everyone, not just Sikhs." These are all the top comments. I mean, they are all 786, 788, 994, 600. I mean, it's over for these people, and they know it. They know it's over. And realistically, because they know it's over, changing these laws doesn't affect anybody, because by the time Pierre gets into power, they're going to turn that stuff around. Pierre's going to empower the people back to have some type of arms again. I mean, at least I would expect and hope, and I imagine the people are going to put that kind of pressure on him to turn that dial back. Let's have a look to see what else we got here, because we've got Rebel News reporting. Public Service Minister Jean-Yves Duclos, if that's how you say it, says the new Liberal gun ban isn't an attack on legal firearms owners, and that the RCMP have the ability to determine which firearms are designed for military purposes and which are reasonable firearms for hunters. See, we shouldn't have any limitations on any kinds of weapons that we possess. Obviously, possessing grenade launchers and rocket launchers and flamethrowers and all these kinds of weapons doesn't make any real sense. But if the military walks around with assault rifles, we should have access to assault rifles. If the police and the SWAT are allowed to have assault rifles, then the people should be allowed to have assault rifles. assault rifles. You know, if it, just like in the line, if they train with assault rifles, then we should be allowed to train with assault rifles. But let's have a listen to what this Yves Duclos says.
In Quebec and across the country, Canadians deserve to live in communities that are safe and free of gun violence. Weapons of war.
Let's just make something clear. There is not a lot of gun violence in Canada. We don't have massacres at the rate of the US, obviously, because we're a very small country in population. And if you look back at how many stabbing massacres we've had in the last few years, it's overwhelming. We've had, you know, I mean, I did a video on this as well, reporting on how many stabbing massacres have happened in Canada just in the last 4 or 5 years since the last most recent gun ban. And of course, this one's not going to make any difference, because if somebody wants to cause pain, if somebody wants to hurt others, they will find a way. We know this. We know this at this point. I've always been more concerned with stabbing massacres. Always. I mean, think about it. If you're just running down a trail and somebody decides, oh, you know what? I'm going to go and try and take out as many people silently as I can. And that's what's been happening. It's been happening in Europe. They've had stabbing massacres in the UK, Australia, all the places with no gun access just have stabbing massacres. So it doesn't really translate well what they're trying to say here. I'm also very concerned with people who might want bombs, make pipe bombs at home, do something crazy like that. I mean, we can access so much dangerous information online. It's not really going to stop or change anything. It really is just about weakening us in the event of, you know, sending military door to door. But let's continue on.
Have no place in our communities. The ban of a further 324 unique makes and models was made possible by the RCMP using the criteria for the May 2020 order in Council and a new technical definition from Bill C-21, which define what is a prohibited. The RCMP has a deep knowledge of firearms found in Canada, and they have the ability to determine which firearms are designed for military purposes and those that can be considered reasonable firearms for hunting. We should not be presented with a false choice that restricting war weapons is an assault on law-abiding, responsible gun owners and hunters. It is also our government's intent to table next week regulations that will ensure that all new makes and models of firearms reaching our country are properly accounted for by the RCMP in the firearms reference table. This means that the list of prohibited firearms will now be evergreen.
But we'll go over to this global story that we have here. It says, feds say they banned firearms. These banned firearms are for the battlefields and may go to the Ukraine. Like, what a slap in the face. Take Canadians' firearms away so that they can send them off to fight a war that we don't want to fight anymore. We don't want to support anymore. I mean, it's so messed up. The liberals and the Democrats, what they're trying to do, they're trying to sewer each country as best as possible so that they can create such a big mess for the next oncoming administrations, that they have such a big job to clean up, that by the time they get to that job, our crooked, left-wing media can start blaming the problem that is taking so long to recover on the administration rather than blaming it on the previous administration. You've got Jagmeet, talking about the last 9 years of their cuts, cut the border guards. I mean, they're trying to figure out a way to screw everybody over so that they can somehow try and weasel their way back in the next few years after the Pierre and the Conservatives get back in. It says Liberal government has outlawed another 324 firearm varieties. Guns, it says, belong on the battlefield, not in the hands of hunters or sport shooters. The move follows the May 2020 ban of 1,500 makes and models of firearms, a number that grew to more than 2,000 by November of this year as new variants were identified. The latest prohibition of hundreds more, announced Thursday, follows expressions of concern from gun control advocates that many assault-style firearms were not covered by the 2020 ban. The measure came on the eve of the 35th anniversary of gunmen's murder of 14 women at the École Polytechnique in Montreal. Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc called the Polytechnique shooting a dark chapter that affected a generation. Our goal is to ensure that no community, no family is devastated by mass shootings in Canada again, LeBlanc told a news conference. Let's not forget that this gun shooting took place in the 80s. And that was the last time we had a massive gun massacre like this. And they're trying to act as though we should be concerned about gun control when massacres are taking place every 10, 15, 20 years. So that's the balance. You know, we're going to take your guns away to make sure that something that never happens doesn't happen. And sure, I get it. Losing people in these kinds of tragedies is you know, terrible, and I would not wish that upon anybody. But that being said, we are in a country where our government is trying to purposely screw us over, and the last thing we want to do is weaken ourselves from defending ourselves from them. Because right now, we should be defending ourselves and coming together and ensuring that we don't allow Jagmeet and Trudeau to somehow continue to eventually strip us completely of any kinds of weapons. What do you think is going to happen? What's the next stage? They keep pushing. Eventually, it's going to be you can hunt with bows and arrows. If you want to go hunting, that's all you get. You get a bow. And, you know, hey, it's more fair. You got to equal the playing field for the animals. And it's disgusting.
And then spears.
And spears. Yeah. You know, get your rock and sling like David from Goliath. You know, like, it's messed up. This is not good news, people. I've got clients who, you know, say things like, oh, you know, I'm not really for guns. And that's fine. You don't have to be for guns. Just don't buy them. If you're not for them, don't buy them. You don't need them. And I'm not saying that we should have access to bazookas, you know, but if the military is training with AR-15s or, you know, assault-style rifles, then we should have access to train with them too. It's pretty disturbing. We've got criminals in our parliament and people who like Jagmeet who are spending stupid amounts of money on their own luxuries like this. Let's have a listen to his little response here. Jagmeet's response here to questioning about his spending in his daily or his personal life. And you can tell by his reaction that this guy, he knows the truth. He knows that this vehicle is linked to him directly. And that's why he dodges the question so quickly rather than try and prove to the people that this is not his property. I look at his face. I can't see these things on YouTube. He looks like he stinks. He looks like he smells really bad.
And can I ask you, the Conservatives are criticizing you for driving a Maserati. Is that your car?
No.
And what do you make of their criticism?
The Conservatives are silly. They do silly things all the time. They lie all the time. They don't care about the truth. They know that they're lying and they'll do it anyways. What I'm concerned is about people getting relief. What Pierre Poilievre is concerned about is playing games in the House. And one of the things that no, not at all. It's not mine at all. It's someone else's. So what has become very
It's owned by the dealership. I don't own it.
clear is that the Conservatives would love to just lie about whatever, make up whatever, but the facts in front of them are, the facts in front of people are, they cut or they voted against giving people a break. They voted against. I have nothing to do with it. I was not driving it. I have nothing to do with it. So they voted against a tax cut for the working class because they're billionaire bootlickers. That's who the Conservatives really are.
Oh man, I thought I hated Justin Trudeau. But this guy, you know, I mean, just infuriating. I'm a pretty good body language reader, and I think most people really are. I think we just naturally can sort of detect bullshit. It's sort of part of our human nature, and we know that that's pure bullshit. What he's just saying right there. That guy knows deep down he probably loves gold, and he probably loves money, and that's why he's holding out for his $2 million pension. Yeah, I cannot stress enough. We've got to get these guys out. And I tell you, it's likely just a distraction from the finance minister and our desire to see how the spending has gone. This is a House of Commons Peter Fonseca, December 4th, 2024, Chair of the Standing Committee of Finance, House of Commons. Dear Chair, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, has not testified at the Finance Committee since the House returned in September. Now, with the House rising for the winter recess, it is important the Minister appear. The Minister of Finance has the responsibility for sharing the status of the government's finances with the country. Canadians have basic questions about Canada's fiscal position, impacts of government spending, impacts of tax increases, and the cost of living. So far, the government has not announced a fall economic statement, tabled the public accounts, or departmental reports. Therefore, Canadians do not know how much their government is spending or what it is spending on. Pursuant to Standing Order 106.4, the committee must meet at the earliest possible opportunity to discuss a simple motion that the Minister of Finance appear at committee for 2 hours before the House rises for the winter recess. They are purposely hiding this stuff, and this gun ban, which is, an additional 300 and something guns added to an already, 2,000 gun ban. It's a ploy to keep our attention or take our attention away from our requests to see where the money's going. Let's see what Pierre has to say about the same thing.
Thank you for being here today. Justin Trudeau has lost control of everything after 9 years. He's lost control of spending, lost control of the deficit, lost control of immigration and the border. And this has real consequences for real people. He's doubled the cost of housing, meaning that 80% of Canadians now believe that home ownership is only for the very rich. He's doubled the number of gun crimes with his catch and release criminal justice policy. He's doubled the number of people lined up at food banks with a carbon tax that on the farmer who produces the food and the trucker who ships the food, therefore all who buys the food. He has doubled the national debt, adding more debt than all prior prime ministers combined. And now he's completely lost control of our finances. Remember, his minister said there would be a cap on the deficit of no more than $40 billion. $40 billion. And now we hear that the deficit has gone much further than that. Why won't the finance minister tell us the true number? What's she hiding? Is she hiding that Trudeau lost control of the deficit this year, just like every year? Yesterday, you all asked her if she would have a fall economic update. She wouldn't answer. The Prime Minister's office told you that there would be a fall update. So apparently these two don't speak, or maybe they're fighting over how big and out of control the deficit actually is. Once again, such a fight would be a loss of control by the Prime Minister. And so we're today, Common Sense Conservatives, are calling for the Finance Minister to introduce a fall update to indicate whether she's keeping her promise to cap the deficit at $40 billion or whether Trudeau's completely lost control of the deficit once again. Not only will we cooperate to let her introduce that fall update, we will actually give her a Christmas gift. We'll give her 2 hours out of our Conservative Opposition Motion Day on Monday for her to stand on her feet and tell us how much she's lost control of the nation's finances. Canadians need a common sense, Canada First plan to protect our economy, our system of immigration, our borders, to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. So the challenge is over to Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau. Stand on your feet. Monday at 4 p.m. We'll clear the deck so you can do it, and tell us how badly you've lost control of the nation's finances and the inflation and taxes Canadians pay as a result. Thank you very much.
I love that. Thank you very much. No questions. It's pretty crazy to think that we live in a place where we rely on elections kind of being called by our government. And usually they call the election, by sort of gauging the temperature of the people. And you've got two parties, the Liberal and the New Democratic Party, who are fighting to protect themselves instead of fighting to protect the people. You read the comments, even on global news stories, even on CTV news stories. You read the comments. There's no favorable comments towards the choices that are being made today. It's all get the fuck out of our fucking country. That's what people want. They want them to get out. We're waiting, and it's up to Jagmeet. It could be done today. We could be pushing and making moves to make our country a better place today. But they are fighting to protect themselves at the cost of millions of Canadians who are suffering. We're suffering, and they want to add more debt, more inflation. They want to influx more money into our economy from the Bank of Canada that doesn't exist, and it's infuriating. We've got, this is what's taking place. This is the confidence that these young people have today. They have the confidence to be kicking and breaking into jewelry stores in broad daylight. Why? Because our government is too afraid to prosecute. And I don't think it's really truly they're too afraid to prosecute. I think it all falls back to the WEF and the World Economic Forum's plan to try and, collapse our economy so that they can step in and solve the problem with their utopia that they're trying to create. And it's pretty disturbing. You got Trudeau slams Poilievre when asked if the Conservative leader's criticism of his leadership is fair or playing into Trump's hands. The PM claims Poilievre is breaking Canadian tradition by attacking him. I can't stand this
Line
little...
between legitimate criticism, please, and playing into Mr. Trump's hands. Let me just say this.
I was gonna walk with a stick up my ass first.
There is a tradition in Canada that when times are tough, when there's a moment of crisis, or when we're threatened, Canadians pull together. We
I'm a little bitch.
step up, we go across partisan lines, and we defend Canada. It seems increasingly clear that that is not something Pierre Poilievre is able to do.
No, you little rat.